In our group chat, I said I claim this one. Max is going to be world champion.
They shot themselves in the foot by potentially having a very pissed off Australian.
He was moaning for like the first 10 laps.
It was a slow burn Singapore Grand Prix, but George Russell held on firm, taking the win and putting right the wrong of him putting it in the wall late in the race a few years ago. We're going to unpack everything that happened along the Marina Bay circuit. I've got Tim Kraaij, GPBlog here, and Jim Kimberley hosting another Paddock update. And this time, Tim, finally, there was a little bit, very little, and very much at the start, of excitement between the McLaren boys, who coincidentally won the Constructors Championship. But Lando Norris showing more fight than I've seen in him all season, going quite aggressive at the start of the race and pipping his teammate, almost putting him in the wall, and creating that bit of drama that we've been asking for all year long.
Yeah, I must say I've been very critical, openly critical about Lando and as well the McLaren team in terms of the lack of spiciness to the fight. But yeah, well done to Lando in this instant, because he took the opportunity that was there presented to him. He was on the inside, maybe a little bit too greedy, where he made contact with Max, of course. Where afterwards in the green room he joked that he just tried to cut his tires for fun. But by that bump with Max, he of course bumped into his teammate as well. And especially Oscar, of course, made a big deal out of it over the board radio. And I think this is where the whole fairness policy of McLaren comes to an end at some point, or at least where this is where the trouble begins, because now it really means something. Now we come close to the World Championship fight, and now we come in situations where they maybe are not so happy to switch places, where now Oscar maybe thinks, yeah, well, hold on, this was my place, I got barged to the side, this is not fair racing either. And that's the main question. What is fair racing? And that's, of course, the difficult bit where they will still have some talks after the race. But it was very clear that Oscar, even after the race, was not very pleased with how everything unfolded. Because if you watch the podium celebration from McLaren, especially at the start, I don't know how it's right now, but in the first moment, Oscar was not there and he was in the media pen.
It's about time, in my opinion, that these two drivers realised they had a championship fight on their hands. From the perspective of, well, Piastri, this seems, I don't know, like a problem that McLaren have been creating all year long by trying to have here's a gold star for you for being a good boy championship rather than a Formula One World Drivers' Championship. And it seems Oscar has repeatedly been the one who's had to lose out a little bit. I would hate, and it'd be even worse, I can't imagine what the internet would be like, if McLaren said, Lando, that was a bit cheeky, please let Oscar by. That would be even worse. But it does seem that in this instance, Oscar would say, the way we've been racing, why have I not got the position back? McLaren have just created this all year long by having this nice guy championship. They shot themselves in the foot by getting it to this point and now potentially having a very pissed off Australian in their team.
Yeah, how pissed off can he be is the big question, of course, because it doesn't seem like he can be very pissed off. I need to correct myself, by the way, because I now see that he's now joining the celebrations right now. So he is in those celebrations now. He was not at first because he was at a media pen, but he is now there. But yeah, I think there are two sides to this. One, McLaren has won the Constructors Championship, so congrats to them. And it does seem to work for them in that way. They want to become the world championship in teams, and they've been successful doing so in 2 years in a row now. I think for that type of championship it works. Does it work for the driver championship? That remains to be seen, because with the way they've been handling everything, there will be some more controversy, because the championship will be more intense when we're moving closer to Abu Dhabi. So I think, and especially with Max now gaining again points on the both McLaren guys in a circuit that doesn't really suit Red Bull, doesn't really suit Max normally, and with the races that are coming up, with the sprint race that we have as well, there's still a lot of chances for Max to close in on them as well, and then to not have one clear number one, driver is maybe a problem in getting that driver championship over the line. But ultimately, and that's where it all comes down to, if one of the two drivers would have been better, if one of the two drivers would be on the level of George Russell or Max Verstappen, we wouldn't be here talking like this. It's just a matter of, yeah, McLaren choose one way of working because the two drivers are very close to each other. But if one of the two drivers would make less mistakes and would be performing way better, we wouldn't be in this position. And Oscar can now complain about the fact that he was barred aside, but he left the door wide open. That was problem one. In this championship fight, you should be always looking to your teammate because that is your main rival. You should do everything possible to keep him behind. That's the one goal you have in this race, and he failed to do so. And then the second part is, like, in the race, you missed a little bit of pace from him as well. He was moaning for like the first 10 laps, and then by then the gap was already so big that if there would have happened something in terms of the pit stop for Lando, or there would have if he would have had a contact with in the wall, he wasn't close enough to do anything towards it. And he did have the pace because till the end of the race he came very close within 2 seconds at the end. But that was a little too late, and that's why I think it's like, stop moaning and go racing. You have a good car underneath you, and there are all those excuses every time, and there's all those rules every time. But just drive faster and win that championship, because it's there up for grabs for those two.
It is, and throw something at you a little bit, which I had the pleasure of watching this race more from a fan perspective, because some of the work that I usually do wasn't happening for the Singapore, which allowed me to browse Reddit during the race, because let's be honest, it wasn't a nail biter all of the way through. And after Oscar, you quite correctly said, did close in the gap, and he had to close in an extra large gap because McLaren again fucked up a pit stop. And somebody said, random Redditor, I salute you, they said, I don't think I've seen a more incompetent World Constructors Champion team outfit, because they constantly are making mistakes. I felt, Tim, and agree with me in the comments, please, if you think McLaren are the worst, because it has been a woeful championship. If they didn't have the dominant car for the first half of the season, I don't see them as a championship or the most well-run organisation this year. How are they still cocking up these pit stops? Because if it was the other way around, if Lando did say, no, you can put Piastri first, and Lando got that cocked up pit stop, they would again be in that situation by cocking up the pit stop. So what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too much to say I will be the good cop here, to say they're the worst Constructors Championship.
You pulled me off the ledge, thank you.
No, I think, like, McLaren as a team, like, the most important bit about Formula One is building a fast car, and they've been very good at doing so for now over 2 years. And I think that is everything you need to do in Formula One. And creating that Formula One car is not just one piece. It's the end product of a whole organization. And I think the whole organization needs to get credit for the thing that they've been able to produce, especially in the last year of this race, where everyone assumed that the field would be much closer. They've been able to make another step, take a big step compared to the others, especially at the start of the season. And now finally the rest is catching up. But yeah, it's a little too late in terms of the Constructors Championship. So I think in terms of the team, yeah, of course there will be issues. But look, we've had a good season for Red Bull as well, making pit stop errors. So I think they're a little bit more scrutinized in that way, because we see so many errors, not only from the team, but also from the driver. So where, like with Red Bull or with Mercedes, you had that one clear number one driver who was just phenomenal over the whole season, just winning almost everything. Like, things for the team become less under scrutiny as well. And now with the drivers making mistakes, because again, the qualifying, I can't imagine that McLaren car being that way worse than the Mercedes or Red Bull car in qualifying over one lap in Singapore. It was just Russell and Verstappen being a little bit better than Norris and Piastri. And I think it's that bit that they're missing. They're missing that great driver in the car, which put the whole organization as a total on the more scrutiny, because like all the decisions get more scrutinized, because the two are too close and not performing at the maximum of the car. Well, they will keep on saying every week, week in, week out, they will say, oh, we've maximized the performance. Oh, there was nothing more into this weekend, the third and fourth. I think it will be different with someone else in the car. But yeah, that's guessing, of course. But I think everyone has that same feeling, and that makes it a little bit more under pressure or less valued than maybe other championships before. But I think as a team, they've done an incredible job. And yeah, the Drivers' Championship is still open. And yeah, maybe there will be a different winner if you look at the race we had today, or the weekend we had.
I do hope the papaya rules do go out the window officially from this point. I think Zak Brown tried to mask over a little bit in his post-race celebratory interview for the Constructors' Championship, saying, well, he's on, after him saying awesome 5 times, we saw them go racing. But this, I don't think, was them saying, go do what you want. Now they've got Constructors down. I really hope we see Norris and Piastri both going a bit more balls out and trying to go that bit extra for the championship. But Max Verstappen is now 63 points behind Oscar Piastri in the World Drivers' Championship fight. Is it too much to say that he's in the fight? It's closing in. He's closed in repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly, either from McLaren making mistakes and DNFing, or just his great driving. It wasn't the win today, which would be a really big point swing, but it was more points going in favour of Max. Do we think he's got a chance of upsetting this title fight? Is it going to be Kimi Räikkönen from the Fernando Alonso Lewis Hamilton year?
Yeah, I must say, after qualifying, I shouted it in our group chat and in the chat with some others. I said, I claim this one. Max is going to be World Championship, because before this weekend, I said, like, if he even can be a little bit competitive, like be third when the McLaren's are first and second, I would already be excited for the rest of the championship, because with Max being close to them on such a track that's normally completely for McLaren and the opposite of what Red Bull likes, if he can be competitive here, that would be interesting. And he was not only competitive, he could have taken pole. He was close to it. Well, if Lando wouldn't have driven there in the dirty air, well, we some discussion about that, but he blamed that, of course. So we had that. And then in the race, there was, of course, a chance to win it if the start would have been better on the red tire, but because of the rain, that there was a little bit less grip on that side, and that side is always already a little bit less grippy. So I think that was the main problem. And yeah, with no overtake in the first lap, then you need something special during the race to win it, and he was able to. But still, he finished ahead of the McLaren's, took points away from the McLaren's as well. And then if you look at Baku and Monza, and you look at the race we gonna get, like with the Brazil, with the Mexico, with Austin as the next one, those are tracks Max and Red Bull as well would like even more. So yeah, with their dominant performance in Baku and Monza, yeah, in the back of our heads, that's going to be interesting, because if Max is able to win those races, and look, if Max has a car that can win, he will win. That's the difference between him and the two McLaren drivers, and that's where he will gain a lot of points. It's still a big gap, but I think with 6 races to go, with 3 sprint races to go in Austin, Qatar, and Sao Paulo or Brazil, just whatever you like.
Brazil.
Interlagos still. So yeah, there's still a lot of points up for grabs, and I think with the car Red Bull now have, with the confidence that they now show, I think there's a lot more to gain, because even in the race, Max had a lot of problems with the downshift, with the balance. There were some issues with the car that he had. And I think if you look at the upcoming races, there's gonna be a lot to play for still. And yes, it's a big margin, but we've seen this weekend again, like both McLaren drivers finishing 3rd and 4th on the racetrack where they got into as favorites. Like that's not like if Max would win now every race, they're gonna be certainly P2 and P3 every race. That's not the case. And Las Vegas is similar to Singapore and even colder, so they will have more issues there, you would assume. So this is going to be interesting. I think he's seriously in this title fight.
I'm going to put a pin in your comment about the qualifying because, of course, we're doing Paddock Update after the race. We didn't do one for qualifying, and I do want to come back to that point. But I do think it's about time we actually paid a bit of love and attention to the race winner, because George Russell won his 5th race, doing great, leading all the laps apart from his pit stops. So he's able to maybe find a little opening in contract negotiations, because this has now got Mercedes into an advantageous position in terms of the World Constructors Championship. They are now 25 points ahead of Ferrari in P2, and they're 35 points ahead of Red Bull, Ferrari in P3 and Red Bull in P4, Mercedes in P2, just to clarify. That, we don't know the exact numbers, but we know that's worth many millions, multi-millions of dollars in prize money for Mercedes if he can continue this sort of form as we go into the last 6 rounds. He hasn't got a contract for next season, and it seems very much a dead certainty at this point, because who the hell else is going to get it? But let's talk about Russell's winning this race, but the timing of it as well. Surely that Toto wanted to get this wrapped up before he wins some more races and can add a few extra zeros on the end of the contract that he does sign.
Yeah, I think incredible job from George this weekend. He's been on it, and especially impressive after the shun that he had in FP2, of course, where normally on a street track like this, you lose a lot of confidence and you need to build that up again. But to be able to get pole on Saturday in a weekend where Kimi Antonelli, of course, was very quick as well in those low speed corners and was really showing Russell at some places how you could improve your lap time. And I think George learned a lot from that as well and picked up even more pace. And I think that total package got him the pole position, which was an incredible lap, especially the first run he did in that Q3 session. And then, the race just did what he had to do. He had a great start. I think that was the most important bit. He said so himself as well in the presser just now. He said he was a little bit scared of Max being on the softs, because he said, like, if Max would have passed him in turn 1, Max would have won the race. Max agreed on that, because like you can't overtake that easily, and you can defend very easily, even on the soft tire, which you saw with Max defending to Lando. So that red tire was an interesting choice and made George Russell a little bit anxious, but he got a good getaway. That's a mouth breaker. He got away very well and lead the race very comfortably. Of course, there was some pressure in the middle of that hard stint from Max getting closer, especially in traffic. But then once Max had that one lockup, the gap was too big and Max had to defend from Lando and George was safe again. So, a race with almost no contact with the wall or anything, no big issue. So, big compliments to George, who's showing that he's one of the better drivers now in F1. I think we've spoken about this a couple of times now. I think, Max is still the best one out there, but George is a standout driver behind him, and at least at the same level as Charles Leclerc, you feel, but especially a little bit better than the McLaren's. And I think he's proving to be a valuable asset to Mercedes. To the Wolf doesn't make it a secret that George Russell and Kimi Antonelli will drive for Mercedes next season. I think he confirms it again this weekend along those lines. It's just a matter of details in the contract, and wins like this will help George getting an even better position in the negotiation table. But I don't think he has that horrible position anyway at the moment, because he's one of the best drivers in F1. He's easily the better of his teammate this season, and as long as he can continue that, he will have a seat at Mercedes, I think.
He will indeed. Meanwhile, the team, the driver from the team that left, we've been looking at. I was thinking this when I watched the race. Hamilton had just such a bad race, and what you don't want me out of a bad race is looking at the team that you left and seeing them win it. So let's talk about Lewis Hamilton. And this race was interesting because he went for this very unusual two-stop strategy at Singapore, where you don't want to make pit stops because you can't pass, but he made it work initially. You saw the smoke coming out of that front left tire, and then you saw the sparks coming out. You see sparks in Singapore all the time, but you don't see them coming out of the brakes. He ended up having to essentially coast around for 4 laps or so without any brakes. ends up crossing the line essentially neck and neck with Alonso. But all that hard work for nothing. Tell us how all this unraveled yet again for Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari.
Yeah, brake issues, and I think it sums up all the things going wrong at Ferrari at the moment. Charles Leclerc spoke with the media after the Grand Prix as well, and he spoke about that it takes just a lot of energy, that all those frustrating moments, and that there's just a lack of progression. He doesn't see any progression, and yeah, he's really looking forward to 2026. But yeah, even for 2026, he says, yeah, we really need to see a big step forward for Ferrari next year, because yeah, we have all the tools, everything is there, but yeah, it doesn't seem to fall into place right now, and they've lost so much terrain to, of course, McLaren, but I think that happened already over the winter when they decided to completely change their front suspension. But that's a whole nother discussion. And they lost track. Or they lose terrain to especially Red Bull during the season, but also Mercedes. And Mercedes is not even winning that much races or anything like that, but yeah, they're more consistent in front and getting those points in, and now getting a big gap in the Constructors Championship as well. So I think that's what you see now, that they're just losing terrain. And I think with Red Bull's current performance, it could even be P4 in the championship, and that will be a bad sign for Fred Vasseur as well, and there will be more pressure on him for 2026 with his new contract. There will be a lot of expectation for Ferrari into that season. But yeah, on to Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, his race unfolded, like I said, like how the season is unfolding. He got the chance to overtake Charles Leclerc, got that position, got the chance to attack Kimi Antonelli, but then suddenly the brakes failed, and yeah, he managed to finish the race, but did so while cutting almost all the corners on the track. So he had to go to the stewards afterwards because they didn't really like that. And Lewis gave the excuse, of course, of the brakes that failed to him, why he was not able to make all the corners. But yeah, the stewards didn't believe that, because they were still of the opinion that you can still make some corners even with not properly working brakes. So he got a 5-second penalty, which made Fernando Alonso P7 and Lewis Hamilton dropped back to P8. So the fuming Fernando Alonso, who was very, very, very furious. Go listen back. There's a lot of bleeping in that board radio, but he finally got his P7 after a horrible race for him as well, with the pit stop going wrong and everything going wrong for him as well. And he didn't want to talk to his race engineer on the radio, but still some solid points for him this weekend.
Was one of Fernando's greatest hits additions, this radio message during it. Oh, I love him. I really do. Now, I said earlier, let's put a pin in it. I just want to quickly touch on it because, of course, this is not race, but a qualifying situation. I have opinions on the Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, dirty air qualifying situation, but I'm very curious to hear what you thought of it, because my opinion was Max very much heat of the moment, looking for an excuse. I think it might have affected it a little bit, maybe more of a distraction than the dirty air to end up locking up where he did. But it didn't look malicious in my opinion, but I know it's very much depending on which side of the fence you are, if you're going to get attacked or not for this. But I think I'm pretty neutral on this. I'm not overly pro Max, I'm not overly pro Norris, but I do think this was just a bit of unfortunate timing. Maybe Norris could have gone really out of the way, but what do you think?
I think, considering the fact that Lando Norris was on his off lap, he was not preparing anything, so he was going to the pit stop anyway, going to the pits anyway. I was a little bit surprised that he just didn't move completely out of the way, because while it wasn't completely blocking, it was like you have the dirty air in that corner because the car is reasonably close to you. I think all the F1 analysts that you've seen on TV described that as well. Was it completely blocking? No, but you have some effect from it, and I can understand why Max would be fuming about it, because Lando Norris's lap was done and he was not pleased that he didn't just move out of the way. Was it Lando to blame? I don't really think so, because the driver himself can't really see that much, or at least can't anticipate where a driver is and what time does he still have. I think it was more on McLaren's side where they maybe thought, oh, we can make this corner without troubling a guy running for pole position. I don't think it was intentional, but yeah, I think Max had a disadvantage because of the fact that Lando was there. But it didn't feel like that big or that big of a deal, and I think it's all like it's adrenaline, it's heat of the moment, where Giampiero doesn't help as well by saying, "Oh, you think you're made for that." I think
Giampiero is the biggest shit stir in race engineering.
He was just throwing a little bit of oil on the fire. So yeah, I think I can understand the frustration. I think Lando and especially McLaren could have done more. Was it as big of a deal as it was made out of? I don't think so. Will Max move out of the way in the next qualifying for Lando that easily? Don't think so.
We're here for it. This is what we love. But we're going to call it there. Thank you, Tim, for everything. And thank you, everybody, for watching on YouTube. I also want to highlight that we're also available now on Spotify if you prefer getting your podcasts there, or you can watch and listen to us. So if you are listening there, thank you for listening in. You can also leave comments on Spotify. Until we go off and go over to the Americas for a busy, really busy few weeks, we'll be back for Paddock Update then.